Ex-UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has made a comeback with her latest piece for the Sunday Telegraph. In a detailed essay, Liz Truss spoke about how her mandate as the Conservative Party leader was not respected and that her economic plans were never given a fair shot. With that, Truss also took a swipe at Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his policies. Business Secretary Grant Shapps came out in defence of the government and has commented on Truss's budget plans as well, saying that her tax cuts were clearly not the right approach. With this, the cracks in the Conservative Party have become all the more prominent and there are signs of a brewing rebellion. For more on this, we're now being joined by Mike Buckley, senior journalist, political commentator and director at UK-EU Relations Commission, joining us from Sheffield, England. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be with you.
First things first, what is your take on Liz Truss's piece on the Sunday Telegraph? She has mentioned how her mandate as the party leader was not respected and that her tax cuts never got a fair chance.
Well, I think all the commentary I've seen on this, and this reflects what I think as well, is that she's not accepting the reality of the situation. The reality is that she came in with a plan, as did her Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng. They wanted to cut taxes. They said that they wanted to boost growth in the economy, but economists, the financial markets, the Treasury, the Office for Budget Responsibility, which is a wing of the government which comments on government policy to say whether it's decent and coherent and will favour the economy and society or whether it won't. Everybody was united in saying this is a terrible idea. That's what happened. That's what we all remember happening mere months ago. For Liz Truss to arrive now and to try and sell a different story, that she was misled, that she went too fast rather than the ideas themselves being bad, is just seen as ludicrous and shows her as somebody who is either unable or unwilling to accept the consequences of her own actions and her own failures.
Right. Now, we've also heard comments from Secretary of State for Business Grant Shapps, who believes that the tax cuts, as you mentioned, proposed by Truss, was clearly the wrong approach. What's your take on that?
It was definitely the wrong approach, and that is borne through not just in the sense that it's been deemed to have been a bad idea that has now been thankfully moved on from by the current government, but it's playing out in real people's lives. The cost of energy, the cost of food, the cost of mortgages because interest rates are going up. The cost of everything in our society really is greater because of the mistakes that this Truss made and the impact that had on trust in the UK economy, the impact that it had on interest rates, the impact that it had on inflation. So we're all of us in the UK, we're poorer because of decisions that she made within the 44 days of her premiership. I mean, she's not only the shortest serving Prime Minister in history, but probably also the most catastrophic, or at least the most catastrophic in a short space of time.
Right. Now, Truss has taken a dig at the current government policies as well. Do you think this highlights the cracks within the Conservative Party?
Yes, it does appear that there's a lot of division in the Conservative Party. Rishi Sunak has two former Prime Ministers briefing against him, his immediate predecessor, Liz Truss, and his predecessor but one, Boris Johnson. Clearly, Boris Johnson wants to come back as Prime Minister. I don't think anybody thinks it's tenable that Liz Truss would come back as Prime Minister, however much she wants to. But it's also true there is disquiet across the Conservative Party. So for example, Rishi Sunak is trying to take sensible steps to rebuild relations with Europe, but he's inhibited in doing so because there's a large group of Conservative MPs who are still very pro-Brexit, even though that's proven to work out very badly indeed. And you may know there was a group of Conservative MPs of backbenchers called the 1922 Committee, and it's that group that decide whether there is a vote of no confidence in the current Prime Minister. And they're already debating changing the rules to have one early in case they want to remove Rishi Sunak and put somebody else in place ahead of the next general election. So the Conservative Party, it looks like a party that is very unhappy with itself and a party really that is in free fall before the next election where it will almost certainly lose power.
Right. In fact, I was just going to come to this. And do you see this as a sign of a growing rebellion against Rishi Sunak? And of course, you've mentioned this, but just for more clarity, what role do you think Boris Johnson has played here?
Boris Johnson is doing what he's always done, which is to prioritise himself above the needs of his party and above the needs of his country. And he clearly wants to come back as Prime Minister, however unlikely that is, and he will do anything to make that more likely, including destabilising Rishi Sunak, his successor, and including minimising the chances of his party winning the next general election. I mean, on paper, it looks very unlikely that his party could win the next general election, but a loyal Conservative MP which Boris Johnson is not, would do everything that they could to be loyal to the current Prime Minister to make that more likely. But that isn't the way that Boris Johnson operates. He only ever thinks of himself, and that's been proven many times through the last few years. And indeed, that is playing out now. And he clearly does have support. I mean, in the last year's Conservative leadership election, he got the support of up to 100 or so MPs backing him, despite the fact that he was only ejected from power less than a year ago for multiple lies and multiple breaches of the law and COVID regulations. And his popularity was incredibly low in the country. Rishi Sunak is not very popular, but he's more popular than Boris Johnson was last summer.
Right, well, that being said, how do you see the situation unfolding going forward for the Conservative Party? Is infighting likely to impact the credibility and lead to further political instability?
I think that we have local elections across the country in May this year. And I think that it seems likely that the Conservative Party will do very badly in those elections. And should that happen, and I think it almost certainly will happen, there will be talk then of removing Rishi Sunak as Conservative leader. However, if they do that, I've got no idea who they will put back in. If they go for Boris Johnson, I think they will just become less popular. And if they went for another option, I don't know who that would be, or who indeed would have a chance of being more popular than Rishi Sunak. So the Conservative Party is in deep trouble, which for people in this country who want to change the government is not bad news. But it is bad in the sense that we have 2 more years of this government, and it looks like they're going to continue making mistakes.
All right, Mr. Buckley, thank you so much for joining us with all your insights on this.
Thank you so much.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.